All of us reach a point in time where we are depleted and need to somehow find a way to reignite the fire within. But how do we spark that flame? Welcome to Reignite Resilience, where we will venture into the heart of the human spirit. We'll discuss the art of reigniting our passion and strategies to stoke our enthusiasm. And now, here are your hosts, Natalie Davis and Pamela Cass.
Welcome back to another episode of Reignite Resilience. I am your co-host, Natalie Davis, and I am so excited and honored to be back with all of you today. And joining me is Pam Cass. Pam, how are you?
I am fabulous. It is a absolutely perfect fall day. It's 71 degrees. It is a clear blue sky. The trees are gorgeous. So I'm kind of in a happy space right now. And I secretly want this to stay like this until spring.
Yes, I agree.
That into the universe, and maybe we could just skip winter this year. I'd be okay with that.
If we all will it together, that would be lovely.
Exactly. We'll make it happen. We'll make it happen. I can't handle the snow.
Well, here's the thing. I don't know if I want to have a conversation with Mother Nature. She doesn't really tend to like the discussion. So
that is true. That is true. I will just let her do her thing.
Exactly. It's like, you do your thing, Mother Nature. Oh my goodness. But it is a beautiful day here in Colorado. And we have a fabulous guest that is joining us today. So why don't you tell our listeners who's joining us?
Absolutely. And I'm so excited about this guest. Of course, I'm excited about every guest because every one of the guests that we've had have just such unique stories. And so I cannot wait to dig into this one. So today joining us is Madhu. He is formerly a monk, is a holistic health and business lifestyle coach who has retained hundreds of health and wellness professionals, coaches, and influencers in ancient science and helps them create 6- and 7-figure online businesses. He lived and trained for half a decade as a monk in the Bhakti yoga tradition. During these years, he traveled extensively studying Vedic arts and sciences under renowned teachers. In his free time, he is a professional musician who tours internationally. I got to listen to a little bit of the music this morning. And so I am so excited to have you here. And I'm going to hand it off to you for you to kind of share your story.
Well, first, I'm so grateful for this opportunity to get to connect with you both because it's quite the labor of love to keep something magical like a podcast like this going. And I speak on behalf of all of the listeners listening to these words that we're so grateful for the effort you put to keep this. Yeah, magic is a good word. Magic going on. As far as what we share. So yeah, I did what most 18-year-olds do and shave their head and become celibate and moved to India.
Okay, I'll tell my
most 18-year-olds.
Yeah, a very strange trajectory. But I had read too much philosophy, and I was getting too disgusted with certain direction I was moving in life. Just being a teenager, the partying. I mean, anyways, a long list that we're all familiar with. It isn't very, let's call it tasteful, as the brain starts to mature. And I saw an alternative, and that was that I could spend a few years learning actually how to become sense controlled and control my mind so it doesn't just control me. And as we often say, you can either be your mind's boss or be your mind's, there's another word that starts with a B, but I won't say it.
Yeah.
You all fill in the blank.
We know it.
Yes.
Yep, we got it.
And you were sick of being the latter, so you decided to be the boss.
Yeah, and because it's a choice. And oftentimes there's a way in which we just feel impelled to have to move forward in whatever direction we think we should be, as opposed to just taking a moment to say, what do I actually want to do with my life? What am I here to contribute with my unique psychophysical nature and gifts? How can I actually be a contributor in this world? Because the mind works in a way of I can either give or it takes. And taking doesn't ever rehab. Everyone knows that. You get the thing you think that make you happy, and you go, wait, I'm still as unhappy. I just have the thing now. So how do we actually find that deep inner satisfaction and peace and purpose in life? And that's what, let's say, excited me on my 18th birthday to become a monk and delve into that space.
Now, where were you living when you were 18 when you made this decision?
So I was at home with mom and dad
Okay.
and quite spoiled. I mean, very simple life. But
Hmm.
you know, mom cooked, did laundry. I didn't realize just how much well, fortunately, being a monk, you just have two pairs of robes you wash every day.
Mhm.
It works out. But
Yeah.
yeah, and a very, very humble but in simple life. And no intention to leave. Never. I thought I'll live with my parents forever. This makes so much sense. Like, free rent. This is great. But
Yeah.
there's a way in which the calling was just too strong. And so from there, that's when I would spend 6 months in India and then the other 6 months in monasteries in the West, primarily for visa purposes. After
Hmm.
180 days, they'd
You
kick
could.
me out. You got to get out, kid.
Mhm.
And I did that for about half a decade.
Okay. Wow.
Wow.
What was the biggest, I guess, challenge that you faced when you went from living at home with mom and dad, meals cooked, laundry done, and then now you find yourself in India? And what was the biggest surprise or the biggest challenge you faced?
Yeah, it was almost all exclusively mental. And that means that circumstances, it actually doesn't take much for
Hmm.
a human to live, give a little place to lay down, a little grub, a couple social connections. It actually doesn't take much for the human to survive, not necessarily thrive, but survive. And so most of the challenges were all up here. And that was really switching the script from uh, what can you do for me to
Mm.
what can I do for you? And that concept, which we call a service attitude,
Yeah.
which according to all the ancient yoga literatures, the Vedic texts, these kind of we call them the wisdom literatures from the East. They all talk about contribution means happiness. To the extent that we become of service, we just provide value. That's where happiness comes. To the extent that we try to accumulate, get the shiniest thing, uh, that's not necessarily make us happy. You can also do those, but they're mutually exclusive. You could also be of service, be happy, and have the shiny, cool stuff as well, but not with the misunderstanding that that's the thing that will provide contentment.
Mm.
Okay. So when you decided to walk away from that, what made you decide to walk away, and then what kind of led you to where you're at today?
Yeah, so after 5 years, the way it works is it was kind of like in the West, it's like 5 years you get a master's degree. And it wasn't exactly to get a master's degree in monkhood, but 90% of monks are student monks, and we call them the one percenters will go on to be lifelong celibate monks. And we jokingly say you either have to be really pure or really weird to go down that route. And maybe I wasn't weird enough, pure enough. No, I say that jestingly, but after a few years, under the guidance of your teachers, it gets to a point where you're like, okay, you're good. Do you want to reintegrate this back into quote unquote normal life now? Because the whole purpose of learning that as a student monk is how to take these principles and bring them into this world to again be a contributor towards society instead of a taker from society. And so after several years, teachers are kind of like, you want it? And I was like, yeah, I think it's yeah,
Yeah.
I'm sleeping on the ground's nice and all, but I think I'm ready for hair.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
Priorities, priorities.
Exactly.
Yes. Well, and so you had all of these years of basically being poured into and having this service, not even attitude, but lifestyle. So
Yeah.
coming and approaching everything from a place of service. And so were you able to have connection and a sense of community outside of your teachers, right? Those people that were pouring into you, but were you able to have a sense of community as well while you were there?
Yeah, absolutely. And so sometimes there's this concept of monks, and it's just how Hollywood does it. It's like a monk means you kind of in the middle of nowhere in the forest, and you don't see anyone. There are certainly monks like that, but we're social mammals, and
mhm.
therefore, good luck. You want to be alone? Good luck. It's an easy way to just become very miserable in life.
Mhm.
Even if we're surrounded by people, but we feel alone, it still causes negative emotions and experiences. So certainly, we must be surrounded by what we might call a like-minded association, those who are of a similar modern vernacular, we say vibe, those you vibe
Mhm.
with. And you'd be surrounded by not just, say teachers and upline if you want, but also we call it like a spiritual frat house, being a monastery, you're with a bunch of other, you know, monks, and you're kind of
I've
like
never heard that
miserable. Yeah.
before, but that definitely puts a different spin on it for me.
Right. It's like,
Different visual.
yeah, right. You can see it. It's just like, and it's fun. It's fun when you're in
Yeah.
that vibe, but then every day, so everyone's engaged according to their nature, which means Some people like to cook. They spend time cooking, not only just for everyone in the temple, but also, we give lots and lots of food and for
Mhm.
charitable events and whatnot. Some people, like I like to teach, for instance. I always have this thing just goes, this mouth of mine. It's for better or for worse. It just goes. And so better to fill it up with something decent, worth saying. And so we would go to universities and teach the basic concepts of yoga and meditation and ultimately how to control the mind so it doesn't control you. And so everyone's engaged accordingly. So certainly that integration, introverts, they like to, they stay back, maybe a little less integration, but most of us, there's a way in which, in order to really live a full life, you must have like-minded connection, certainly.
Mhm.
Yeah,
That- mm,
fabulous. Well, talk to us a little bit about your reintroduction after you wrapped up your experience, because that was a journey in itself. And you are basically charged with now take this out into the world and continue to make a difference. So, talk to us a little bit about that transition.
Yeah, well, the interesting thing, so after graduation, I'm grateful to say you get a lot of support from the community. It's kind of like it's not like good luck,
yeah.
no more orange robes for you, pal. It's more like, hey, good. You've done the hard work. Now let's integrate. And so there is a certain levels of support. So it's not like you're on your own. And so in my case, there was no shortage of places I could say go or I could still even stay in some ashram-like experiences, but for me, it was really important to. I do well with immersive experiences, just the way my mind.
Mhm.
Wow.
Otherwise, if I don't jump into things, kind of both with both feet, anyway, for better or for worse, that's just how my mind works. And so I was like, all right, let's do this. How am I going to support myself? And ultimately, I was keen to finding a way to support myself via the methodologies that I had learned and how to
Mhm.
actually improve people's quality of life and make money doing that. Especially because a lot of people say you can't do that. Especially it's cliche in like the spiritual community. It's like, oh, you got to work to make a job and then do your passion on the side. And I was like, that's no thing. I mean, not there's a problem. Most people people want to do that by all means, but it's not that you have to do that. And so I definitely didn't want to do that. I didn't want to. Nothing about me says normal job, and you guys can't tell. And so I was like, all right, how can
Same.
I? Yeah, yeah, right, right. And so I was like, how can I do this in a way that's sustainable? And I mean, don't get me wrong, it took me about 2 years of making far below the poverty line to actually figure out how to do it. Making $15,000 a year
Mhm.
um, for the first 2 years outside of after graduating the monastery. But eventually, just being diligent, and ultimately that means finding people who do the thing you want to do and saying,
Mhm.
how may I serve? Please give
Yeah.
me some knowledge. What can I do in reciprocation for the knowledge? And by getting the fortune of amazing mentors, allowing me to actually build a business that supports me in,
Mhm.
holistic practices, providing mindset support. And nowadays it's transformed all the way into we have a marketing agency because I grew my holistic business. So I'm grateful to say through the guidance of my teachers, grew it so successful that
Mhm.
all my other friends who are providing holistic services were like, hey, I'm broke, help. And I wound up spending so much time helping them. And I was like, all right, let's just, let's say one wellness coach that I can support will go help 50 more people. And
Yeah.
therefore, let's say I've got 50 something clients today, and therefore each of those 50 something, they're now helping 50 plus
Yeah.
as well. And in this way, it's more exponential. So that's how it evolved from
Mhm.
making no money, doing what I love, still being happy, but not having money, which doesn't, it's tough, doesn't work very well to
Yeah.
figuring out how to make a successful, lucrative business. And then now I'm grateful to get to share that with others, teach others.
Yeah.
Love that. And I saw on your website you have retreats that you do. And I was kind of going down the different places that you do those retreats. So did you start with retreats? Was this something that you've newly added? And tell us about what does that look like? So
Yeah. So I got really sick and tired about 2 years after I graduated the monastery. I was sick and tired of being sick and tired. I was happy and I was feeling quite fulfilled because I'm what we learn. It's not necessarily to my credit. My only credit is just trying to share what I've learned. But what we learn is so beneficial for people. It's so viscerally and practically helpful in people's life. And so there was a lack of integrity because I was doing it, but I was exhausting myself and I wasn't
Mhm.
able to afford
Yeah.
just the necessities of life. So I got sick and tired and I was like, okay, how are the people who don't have like, I mean, I say it's kind of it's a joke, but it's like people who don't like know anything are making a bunch of money. Like there's clearly something I just don't know. There's just not, it's not like I'm at a disadvantage. I'm not a victim here. We're there, we could bigger topic, but no one's ever actually a victim in an ultimate sense. And we can explore it later. But I'm not a victim to my circumstances, my experience. I'm in control of my life. That means I get to do what it takes to make this results, the reality. And so
Hmm.
I said, what could I do to make a little bit of money? Because keep in mind, I'd made a little over $15,000 the
Yeah.
prior 12 months.
Yeah.
And that was working hard, believe it or not. And I was like, what could I do? And because I'd lived in India, I knew it quite well. And I traveled extensively. So I
Hmm.
thought, okay, I know people who run India pilgrimages. What if I launch something and do an India pilgrimage? And I was so freaking scared. I was like, no, this is gonna fail. I'm gonna get rejected. No one's gonna sign up. It's not gonna make any money. And I was like, screw it. Like, what else? When the bar's on the ground,
Yeah.
it ain't going any
Why
lower.
go up?
Yes.
Yeah, yeah. And so I was like, all right, let's just try it. And I launched it, and I'm grateful to say it sold out quite quickly. And so for the first time in my life, I had made more in for 2 weeks of work, the 2 week pilgrimage, than I had almost for the prior 2 years combined.
Wow.
20 something thousand dollars for 2 weeks of work, which and it sold out and people were stoked about it. And then that's when something changed where I went, oh, okay, that's right. I'm the captain of the ship here. I get to create my future, my reality, instead of just wallowing, why me? And
Yeah.
whatever mental blocks
Yes.
might be there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. What does a 2 week pilgrimage look like?
Sure. Yeah. So we take people, we go to India, we call it pilgrimage. We also do retreats in like Greece and Bali, other places, which are a little bit more like a yoga retreat, holistic. But when we go to India, it's very pilgrimage because it's such a spiritual land. And instead
Mhm.
of going there to try to just enjoy, even though we go to quite enjoyable places, we call it pilgrimage to really focus in like this is a spiritual experience for people to go inward and really become reflect and really become in tune with their inner purpose. In Sanskrit, it's called dharma or their intrinsic purpose in life. And so, every morning we start with meditation, we do some yoga. So when we say yoga, I mean to say like the calisthenic, gymnastic-esque workout that
Mhm.
usually people connect the word yoga with. There's also internal yoga, of course, meditation. Then we read from ancient literatures from the East, have a wonderful breakfast, and then we do something amazing that day. And that's everything from go to the top of the Himalayan mountains to sometimes we're at eco villages and we spend time, we do some cow therapy to some workshops. I mean, it's just a whole
Wow.
span of amazing things that we do. Go out and see ancient temples that have been there for at least a few thousand years and really get a spiritual experience, come back, have another evening connection, doing some meditation together. And it's
Mhm.
really meant to help us understand who we really are and like our again that inner purpose, that inner way we can serve and be of contribution to provide happiness in our life and mind,
Mhm.
and how to connect with cool folks. Because if you want to
Well,
become good at something, just find a bunch of people doing the thing, and as if magically, you become that.
The thing. Yeah.
amazing.
Oh my
Love it.
gosh. That's huge. And I
Mm.
think you shared when you came back and you doubled your income, or even the combo for the last 2 years, you were able to see the traction and you were experiencing it in that. But the 2 weeks that you were on the pilgrimage, did that imposter syndrome voice still continue to pop up? Because before going on the pilgrimage, you still felt, like, what am I doing? Here I am going to tell people to, attain this life of their dreams. And as you mentioned, the bar is on the ground for me. So I'm going to guide and lead these folks. Where was that click for you? Was it on the pilgrimage itself, or was it truly after you came back and the checks cleared?
Yeah. Yeah, it was a somewhat of an incremental. So the first step for me is when it sold out with practically no effort. I mean,
Mm.
like I was like, oh, I don't marketing, but it's just as if, mystically sold out. And that was the first step where I went, oh my God, okay, this like I'm the only thing stopping myself. I'm just
Mhm.
in this analysis paralysis of what if after what if. That's
Yeah.
and the only reason I'm not doing what I want in life is it's me. It's because I'm not making the decisions to actually do the things I want to be doing. And then the next level was actually being there. And in the beginning, it's scary. I'm like, oh, what do I know? I don't know anything. But as you go and you see, as I was seeing people's experience, I was then reminded of the training I received, which is we're all vessels. We're instruments of service. We're not really capable. Like sometimes there's a concept like I'm a healer, and it's like no, I channel healing energy. I'm in power. I'm not. I myself. I'm just a little living entity with some little gifts. But there's only so much I can do. But when I tap into, let's say, the empowerment that's available through, say, the teachers, we like to say stand on the shoulders of giants. It's like you connect with those who have great messages. You connect to divinity within, and you channel that. And in this way, when I, let's say, came back in touch with this concept that I trained years of, like I'm a vessel of service. I'm not the doer. I'm not the special. I'm special only to the extent that I allow myself to channel that and just be an instrument. And in that kind of a snap of like snapping out of, oh yeah, that's right. This is something I'm here to do, to serve and to help others. That's really where that relief came from. And because you can only feel like an imposter if you think that you're the ultimate doer in this situation. If I'm the man.
I got the
I'm the
answer.
man. It's like, yeah, good luck. See how long that lasts for.
Yeah.
And not only is it arrogant, but it's unsustainable.
Yeah.
And so in this way, it slowly over time, there's a way in which it's like, that's right. I'm simply here to just give back the amazing gifts my teachers have given to me. And to the extent that I could just channel that, there is no quote unquote imposter. And I also, even still to this day, when those thoughts come up and people ask all the time, how do I overcome imposter syndrome? It's like, we always say, just be honest and don't tell people what they will do. Just say, this is what I did. Try the same thing, see if we get the same result. Because in this way, you can't be an imposter. You're just talking about what's worked factually.
I love it.
That's awesome. That's awesome. That's that voice in the back of your head and the back of all of our heads. We have nicknamed that voice Dr. Evil Scary Porkchop, Dr. Evil Porkchop.
Dr. Evil Porkchop.
Just Dr. Evil Porkchop on the show. So we like to silence that voice sometimes because it tells us the things that we don't want to be friends with that person anyway. No. They do not have our best interests at heart.
I love that. I love it.
So coming out of graduation, you decide the best thing for you to do is step into the space of entrepreneurship, host a pilgrimage after a couple of years. I mean, the only career and profession out there that does not have a playbook or steps to success that are repeatable. So here you are in this space and you come back and it clicks for you. Then what happens? Are you at that point that you realize this is what I'm here to do?
Yeah, you can't unknow knowledge. Once you hear it, you can't unhear it. What do they say? You can't unring that bell.
Yeah.
And there's a way in which I then was faced with the reality of, oh yeah, that's right. I am in control of my life. And blaming someone, it's not even real, what to speak of it, don't help. That's for sure. And so when I came back from the pilgrimage, everything was kind of, there were a lot of circumstances that were, let's just call it precarious, that were changing. Like the place I was staying at the time, they were pretty much like, hey, this place you get renovated. I was literally staying in what we call the dungeon. At this time, I was with my girlfriend, who's now my wife. We've been together 8 years now. And where we were staying, we called it the dungeon because it was like a ground level, tiny little place. And I'm not going to go into details, but they were like, yeah, you can't stay there anymore. It needs renovations. It's not even like healthy to live there. So I was like, where are we going to go? Where are we going to live? And she was also in college, getting her degree in culinary arts and nutrition. So, she graduated young at 16. So she's young. I'm young. We're like, what the heck are we doing here? And so there's all these precarious elements, and that kind of pushed me in the trajectory of having to figure it out. And now I knew it's possible. Now I know, okay, I have to be the one that decides. And so I went all in and I said, all right, what is it that I really want to do? And how can I charge for it? And don't get me wrong, it's not as easy as just maybe how I said it. It took a great deal of education, support, just ultimately knowledge gathering, but then eventually saying, all right, I'm going to do this. And I was grateful that as soon as I created my online, we could call like a wellness business, really, it was like based around meditation. And one of the expertises I had as a monk's called Ayurveda. It's ancient holistic healing arts. Similar to traditional Chinese medicine, just very similar, but the Indian version of it, if you will. And so I was offering these services and I was like, okay, I'm going to charge, like, what if I just pick big numbers? And big numbers at the time was like, what if I charge someone $4,000 to work with me for 6 months? Like, I was like, let me just reach as high as I could.
Yeah.
Keep in mind, we're talking about someone who's made, a quarter that, less than 3 times that a year.
Yes.
And I was
Yeah.
like, let's just go crazy. Let's just try it. And so I did it. And the first 2 people were like, absolutely. When do we get started? And I was like,
Wow.
what the heck is going on here? And in this way, I
that
was
means
like,
that you're not charging enough. That's what that meant.
true. Yes. And my prices definitely have changed since then. But
Yes.
yeah. And in this way, I was like, okay, this is an option. And I'm the only one getting in my way. And that's when I started spending a lot of time, energy, resources, money, studying business, finance, sales, marketing, and then doing what we call the conscious version of it.
Thank you for joining us today on the Reignite Resilience podcast. We hope you had some aha moments and learned a few new real-life ideas to fuel the flames of passion. Please subscribe on your favorite streaming platform, like or download your favorite episodes, and of course, share with your friends and family. We look forward to seeing you again next time on Reignite Resilience.